interesting. But yeah, I love to travel. I know Shirley does too. And so we thought, well, this is, we can share, but we want you to share with us too, because I think a lot of you have traveled maybe sometimes a lot of places we haven't. And if you would tell us your experiences too, I think that's helpful for all of us to share. So I retired in 2004, and it took me a couple of years to catch up on 40 years worth of maintenance at home. But so then I started traveling after that. I guess I'd been to a lot of places that I didn't put any pictures up before, but we can talk about where people have been and stuff. Let's see. I've been to Australia, New Zealand, China, Turkey, all over Europe, all over South America, to Brazil, Ecuador, Peru a couple of times. Mexico is actually great places to travel there when it was safe. I don't know about now. And let's see, last summer I went to Greece. I went to Brazil last summer too. And then I went to Morocco, which was, I think, one of the most fascinating places I've been, besides Turkey, but there are Roman ruins everywhere. So anyway, go ahead, Shirley, introduce yourself.
So I'm Shirley Higgins, and the only other travel presentation I've been part of, I talked about travel a little bit, and I started my presentation with the line that I'm not a very good traveler because I need to take Dramamine to get on a boat or an airplane. That's still true, but I do it nonetheless so that I can get out there. And what got me interested in participating in this particular presentation is that travel insurance, my big trip after I retired was that I decided with a friend of mine that we would go to Japan. She's Japanese, and I'm half Japanese. And she said, let me take you there and we'll explore the country, and I could visit where my mother had been born and lived. So we made these plans, and she came up with a great idea that we should use a travel agent because they'll schlep all our luggage and make all the arrangements, and we don't have to do anything except trot along. And that sounded fine with me. And then also she was kind of surprised when at the end of all that I said, should we get travel insurance? Because she would never have done that ever. And my sister had some health problems at the time. And so I decided, I never know, I might have to suddenly leave the trip or not even go or whatever. So I wanted to be prepared. And that trip was kind of a big investment. Going to Japan for 2 weeks was kind of an expensive thing. So I wanted to be protected. So my friend just said, okay, I'll get the insurance with you. So just to give you a ballpark in case you've never dealt with this insurance sort of thing, I did look and see, does my health care insurance cover me? And it did, but would not cover a situation where my sister's sick and I had to leave the country. And also I was shocked at how kind of expensive it was, because our trip was in the neighborhood of like $6,500 total for each of us. And the insurance cost like $750 for each of us. And that's kind of a high amount. I mean, it's more than 10%. And so my friend was a little shocked too. She almost didn't want to do it. But anyways, we went, we had a wonderful time. On the very last night, when we were getting ready to prepare to leave, I got sick, not my sister. And what happened was I started acting weird, and my friend said, you're acting weird. And I stood up to get dressed, and I fell over and I couldn't walk. And so anyways, rode an ambulance to the university hospital in the city. We were in Nagasaki. I rode an ambulance, went to the emergency room, had a checkup with the doctor there, and then had a treatment. I had low blood sugar, and so they had to give me an IV to bring my glucose level up. And so I don't know what that would cost in the United States, but I am sure it would cost way more than what I paid. What turned out happening is I had to pay on the spot and then ask for reimbursement from the insurance company. And shockingly, Japan has national health care, and so their citizens are covered, but foreigners, of course, are not. And I had to pay cash for my treatment. Turns out a ride in the ambulance and the emergency room visit and the treatment altogether cost me only like $250. They have incredibly inexpensive health care. So way different way of running their medical care than we do. But anyways, and then what happened to us though is because this was the day of leaving, I caused us to get postponed for our trip home. And we couldn't get a flight back to the US for 2 days. So we had to spend 2 extra days in the hotel, and there were other expenses that we had to deal with the flight and everything. And so that potentially would have been a pretty expensive situation for us. But thanks to the fact that we had that trip insurance, they covered everything, and they did it immediately and helped us on the spot. I mean, I just called and called the airline and got things arranged for the flight and everything, and we were taken well care of. So I am here to let you know that it can be a very valuable thing, and it way more than covered it was way more than $750 worth of care that I received and help that I received, and so it was well worth it to me. Whereas I know lots of you are thinking, well, yeah, I go on trips all the time and nothing bad ever happens to me. So it's kind of, you never know. That's my story.
So Shirley, just a quick question, did you have to, they paid for your extra hotel nights? Did they pay for your extra hotel nights and everything?
Yes. Yeah. Even meals, because we were there that many extra days, they paid for everything that we weren't expecting.
Yeah. Well, I always buy travel insurance too, but so far I haven't had any bad experiences with it, and I haven't really had to ever collect. When I first started traveling, I guess one of the early trips I made was sort of backpacking through Australia and New Zealand, and at that time, if you stayed in hostels, there was a hostel insurance that was like dirt cheap. It was so good, and it would cover just about anything. But they ended that, unfortunately. So now you do have to buy from one of these big companies, and there are lots of companies offering insurance. I don't know. I've always used trying to spell it correctly, Generali. I'm trying to figure out how to spelling that correctly. Because they have a very low cost health insurance. But if you, Shirley, did you put up the pages yet that you were gonna with the?
Actually, Vanya did the
okay.
The travel insurance handout that we have for you. Vanya posted on the link that you can get to from the chat. It's the URL is there. Or the download, right? It's a download, is available to all of you there.
And then should I just put the slides up now and you can go through it? Would that be a good idea?
Oh, the slides that I did. Shirley, I sent a copy to Vanya, but I couldn't get them sent to you. So there's just a couple we can go through and see how they are. But
yeah.
And then I just sent a lot of pictures to Vanya to put up, because I think that's kind of makes it more interesting and fun. But you
real life,
definitely Yeah, you definitely need to get to get some travel insurance. Although there's some other funny things now, because now, with different from what it used to be, your airlines tickets also now say, oh, well, you can pay this much for the, for the round trip ticket, or you can pay this much more, and that way you can cancel up to 2 days before your flight. So I think there's the different airlines offer different ways of buying your tickets. So you have to be sort of careful and see the differences. I think we've always done ours so that that if you had to cancel at the last minute, you could, because you never know when you're going to get, you could get deathly ill the day before you're supposed to leave. And I actually am like Shirley in that I get very seasick where I go. And before I get on an airplane, I quit taking Dramamine. It makes you just, unless you want to sleep all the way there. I usually take Bonine, which is much easier to take. You just chew it up. But anyway, I definitely got sick on the, even on the, well, it was like a 6-hour ferry when I was in Greece last year. So like, okay, just the ferry ride was making me seasick. No, I don't go on cruises, so we're not discussing cruises today. Somebody else could do that. But I think it's definitely important to have some. So I don't know if we want to show. So you can see the next slide. And in the background, I've just put all kinds of pictures. So anytime you want to know what something is, just yell. And a lot of people never get travel insurance, but I do think it's very important to do. I don't think I've ever bought any travel insurance that was gigantically expensive. I mean, you want to look at it. If it's going to cost more than your trip, then it's definitely not worth it. It shouldn't cost more than 10% of your trip, the way I look at it.
And there were some guidelines about if you have a trip within the United States and your health insurance will cover you, then maybe you might not want to purchase travel insurance. So it kind of depends on where you're going and how long you're going to be gone.
Yeah, I think also, I mean, I guess I'm thinking always like travel outside the US, international travel, which is probably what you were thinking too. So, but with the international travel, I do think it's important to get. And also, you want to be careful about getting your visas ahead of time. There's only certain countries require visas, but in some cases, they're not easy to get. When I, at the time, now this has been years ago, when I wanted to get my visa to go to China, I had to drive to Los Angeles to get it.
Oh my.
And now a lot of things are done online, which they didn't do then. I do have to have a visa to go to Egypt. I'm going to Egypt in February this year, and they do require a visa. Also, you want to look at the health restrictions. We'll get to that in a minute. But trip cancellation is a good one that Shirley just mentioned, because she actually had to sort of cancel her return trip because of sickness, and you never know. So you want to talk on this one at all, Shirley?
No, it was all very straightforward and easy. The airline made it easy. The insurance company said you're covered. Just do what you need to do. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing with the if you're going to cancellation a trip, but like before you even leave, something happens and somebody gets very ill or something at home. Most of the airline tickets now have the date by which you can cancel. I know ours did, that we're doing now, that said you can, but you pay more for being able to cancel your flight. I think it's within a day or two of flight, depends on which airline it is, but you have to pay more for that ticket than if you do the other one. But it's not substantially more, it's just more. Everything costs more, Okay, let's see what else we got here. Oh, medical coverage. Shirley was just giving a good example of that. usually you're not covered by Medicare outside the US. But your health insurance, you need to, different health insurance companies do it different ways, but always you're going to end up having to pay up front for whatever happens to you. Pay up front, and then when you get home, you try to get most of it reimbursed. And the extra things that Shirley got covered, like the hotel and everything, because it also delayed her trip.
Yeah.
Which was sad. Yeah, I have missed flights before, so it's terribly hard to reschedule sometimes. So let's see what else. Yeah, I've really never had to use my medical insurance abroad. But that's a good reason to get it, because you never know. And a lot of the, with the emergency medical, like Shirley said, she had to go by ambulance to the hospital. Well, in some cases, I mean, if that were in the US, it would be horribly expensive. But I'll tell you sort of a funny medical emergency we had on a trip to in Peru. We were way up in the mountains. Well, I was on a plant trip, so this wasn't a culture. This is a plant trip. We were out in the middle of nowhere, scrambling on the dirt, looking for different plants. And one of the people had her cell phone in front of her, and she fell on it. And when she fell down, she broke her wrist. And so we all piled back in. There was just about, I think there were 12 of us. We got back in the van and went to the nearest town. And at the nearest town, the person in charge of the trip got out and he asked them, so where's the nearest doctor? And they said, oh no, what he asked was, where's the nearest doctor where they have an x-ray machine? So he said, oh no, we don't have one here. Go about 10 miles up the road and there's a mining town right there. And they have lots of mine accidents. So they have an x-ray machine. So we did, and we went back. And I wish I had a picture of it, but I didn't take one for some reason. It was the strangest place, because on one side of this little narrow, just this little dirt road street through the middle of town. This is not a city. This is a little town. And on the left side said hospital. And on the right side, lined up all on the right-hand side, were all these casket companies who had pictures of their caskets for sale out on the front doorstep. And it's like, oh my God, that doesn't encourage you to go to the hospital. So anyway, Pam went into the place they went in, and they said, oh yeah, sure, we can x-ray your arm. So they x-rayed her arm and wrist, and the x-ray was $6 for the x-ray, and they gave her the negative to take home to show her doctor. So they didn't treat it there. They said the best thing to do in her case was just to wrap it and put a sling and try not to use her arm. So that's what she did for the next 10 days before we left for home. Luckily I had, not many people had a long, I had stuff for pain meds, so I gave her those and she was fine.
Oh, good.
But yeah, she was in pain and it hurt, but this is in the middle of nowhere. So you don't even know, if you're in the city and you're traveling in big cities in Europe, there's no problem. There's always hospitals. But if you're out in the middle of nowhere, you may not know where the hospital is. But we thought it was very funny that it was like $6 for the x-ray. Now, what would that cost you here? They didn't ask her anything. They just said, her name and everything, and which arm, took the x-ray and then gave her the picture. It's like, okay, that was easy.
Wow.
Yeah. Let's see, what else do we have to have? I don't know. I've never been on a medical evacuation, but I guess you could have to be evacuated medically if you had a heart attack someplace or something. So I don't know much about that, but depending on your individual health, you might want to ask about some of those things. And I think the medical insurance is maybe more important now that COVID is still active effective in some areas. I went, oh, and another thing to definitely do before you go is check in with your doctors. Like I go to Scripps and they have the travel clinic. So I was making an appointment with the travel clinic, a couple of weeks before I'm going to go someplace and make sure what vaccinations I might need. So when I went yesterday, I found out that I've been going there for a long time, so she had all my records, and what I needed to get was a polio vaccine. That they've had an upsurge of polio in the Middle East. So I went, okay. I can't remember when I last had my polio vaccine. I mean, it was probably when I was in high school or when I started college or something. So it's been a long, long time ago. But I always think that's a good thing to check. Several things that I always think about before I go, and it depends on where you're going. But certainly when I go to the Amazon or something, I always get typhoid. I think it's good for any kind of travel to get a typhoid vaccination that lasts usually for 2 years. Although you can take pills which last 5 years, but I don't know if there's the same thing. But anyway, I lived in the Southeast where people drank well water out in the country. So every summer when I was a kid, we all had to go and get our typhoid shots. So I just think because you never know about food handlers and the water, I don't usually, I do not eat, I don't have any drinks with ice in them. And I drink only bottled water when I'm traveling, not at home, but at traveling. And I don't eat salads. So you're really hungry for a nice big salad when you come home because you don't know what kind of water the lettuce was washed in. Or the food handlers. Food handlers pass on typhoid. They also pass on hepatitis. So always a good thing to have your vaccines all checked and done before you go.
Well, that's a good point.
Usually,
we have a question on the chat from Suzanne Ward. She wants to know, does anybody in this group utilize the UC personal travel insurance that's underwritten by Chubb? She saw it on the UCOP website, and it says that retirees and their travel partners are eligible. Has anyone used that? I haven't.
So where did you see it to?
Suzanne?
Hi, I saw it on the University of California website, on the UCOP website, and it's for personal travel insurance. And it's only $59 a week.
Oh, that's cheap.
I know it sounds too good to be true, but that's why I was wondering. And it covers injury, lost baggage, trip interruption. I mean, everything we've been talking about.
Oh, wow. That sounds wonderful. Well, that's why I think it's good for everybody to chime in and tell us, because I don't know about that. And I certainly will look at it because I haven't bought my travel insurance yet for Egypt. So that would certainly be a good thing to look at.
And then in the chat, Paula, did you mean those messages to be sent to everyone? I think they were only sent to me, but I can repost if you'd like them sent to everyone.
You can send them to everyone. It was the link to the UC site and also the recommendation by Stephanie Strathy, who wrote The Perfect Predator, where they used the insurance to get themselves out of a terrible medical emergency in Egypt. So yeah, you can forward those to everyone. There's a link to a PDF as well that from the UCOP site.
Can I chime in as a talker, or do I have to do it on the?
Please.
No.
Okay. This is Diana Olson, and I worked in risk management for 30 years, so I know a lot about insurance. but that CHUP policy should probably be a really good one, because you see, corporate, they really check into that. And we got real involved in business travel insurance when I was in risk management. So, definitely check into that. But my biggest suggestion on travel insurance is make sure you read the policy. I
Yeah.
know it's long and fine print, probably onion skin paper, but it's so important to know, what you're covered, what your limitations are, what your exclusions are. And it's really definitely important to get it, even though nothing's happened to you.
Yeah.
You just never know, especially nowadays. And it's just a really good policy to get. I've gotten travel insurance and used it just for personal property that got damaged. But it's so important, because we had some student travelers that, got injured, and they have problems at the doctor's office, and, with the going in alone with the doctor type of thing. And so you have to be super careful, of course. Same with taking photos. Some countries don't allow you to take photos. There's all kinds of little things like that. And I think each country has its own embassy or something, and you could check all of that before you go on a trip. I don't know if you were going to go through that, but that really helps, because they can tell you what's going on at the time, and then you want to have them all informed anyway, of your, coming into the country, and then take copies of everything, and, leave a copy somewhere else. That's always a good idea too. So just some suggestions.
Thank
That's
you.
great, Diane. I think that's good. I always make sure I make a copy of a Xerox of my credit cards.
And your passport.
Numbers on the back that you call.
Right, and your passport, because you just never know when something's going to get stolen, and then you're going to have trouble with a passport on getting a new one. But they have those little ID cards now that you can get as well as a passport. So you put them in separate places, and that'll help. But definitely, and then let somebody know, a family member, whatever, that you're going and somewhere, so that there's contacts there, and then send them all the copies. So that all helps.
Yeah, so now too, I take a copy of all my documents that I'm taking, passport and the credit cards and everything. And I take pictures of it also at home on my phone before I leave, because then I have quick, easy access to it. And I put a printed copy somewhere else where nobody will find it too, or switch it with somebody else I'm traveling with. Yeah, that's very good. Also, like when I went, let's see, 2 years ago when I went to Morocco, the country was still checking people to make COVID, their COVID vaccinations. So you had to show that you had a COVID vaccination before you went into the country, and then when we left, the travel group I was with then, and that wasn't a plant travel group, that was a cultural travel. I was with Gate One Travel. They actually had someone come to the hotel and do a COVID test on every single one of us, and gave us the certification before we could leave the country, because they didn't want people carrying it out of the country. But it was really interesting, because before we went, we kind of looked it up and thought, okay, we've had all our shots and everything, but just to be sure, let's see. And it turned out it was not prevalent in Morocco at the time. It was very low incidence of COVID at the time. And that was what, 2022, I think. So they were making really sure that people did not bring it into the country. They didn't want it spread around. So I thought it was very interesting that they didn't want us to leave and get on an airplane either with it. So I thought that was very careful of them. So that's another thing to look up before you leave, is whether what's prevalent disease in the country at the time you're going. So I was kind of surprised that Egypt said it was polio. A little scary to me, since I grew up when I was a kid. We lived when people were being put in, I lived when people were being put in iron lungs, and we couldn't go to the movies, we couldn't go in any crowds or the swimming pool, everything was closed. Now, this isn't I lived in the Southeast and they just closed everything, but it was very scary at the time. So let's see. I don't know. Do we have more slides or not? I don't know. We have. Oh yes, I did do this one too. So there are primary and secondary claims for emergency medical, and I thought that was kind of interesting that your primary is whatever insurance you have when you're traveling. So, if you've signed up with an insurance company, you have one, that's your primary, and they will give you advice, but usually you still have to just pay out of pocket like Shirley did. And then your secondary is when you get home, you go to your health insurance provider, and sometimes they will cover a good portion of that, but you have to claim it to get it paid. Okay.
I believe that was all those slides. Shirley, did you want me to do any other slides, or is that it?
That's all I had.
Do you want to go back to the beginning, Vanya? We could take some of the pictures and talk about what they are. If you want to do that at the top of the thing. So I think most of these pictures I sent to her today. So, okay, this first one is funny. This is Galapagos Islands off of Ecuador. I went to Ecuador first on a plant trip, and then I went to the Galapagos afterwards. This is obviously in town where the two ladies are, but if you look a little to the one with the birds in it, those are blue-footed boobies. So if you've never seen a blue-footed booby, they really are bright blue feet on these birds. Let's see, I think this one's taken in Quito, I think, because you can see the volcano in the background. It's covered in snow. Let's see, want to do the next one? Okay, this is actually in Peru. I think that one's in Peru. I think I pulled that one up earlier. And what those funny black things in the middle, I just thought were fascinating. Everybody knows what an iguana is, but these are big black, called marine iguanas. And they're really funny looking, and they're not afraid of you at all. They just lay in the path in front of you like, hey, this is Galapagos. We're here first. You're just a visitor. Watch out where you step. Don't step on me. But they're not at all afraid of people. But they have this thing, because they eat plants out of the ocean, that their body expels the salt through their, I guess it's like their nose. So the whole top of their head is covered with white speckles of salt. It just looks really weird on these big, and they're big. They're not small animals. They're like, like 5 feet, 6 feet long. And wow. They just, and on the island, they come up onto the dry land, and they just lay up there in front of you, and they let you walk over them. Just like, you're in my way. I'm pretty sure this third picture is up in the Andes in Peru. Okay. Want to do the next one? Yeah. Okay, I had this marked as Cajamarca, but it's not. This is the Mercado in Cusco. So I walked around to the market. It's really fun to go to I'm sorry, this is in Greece. This is a store in Greece in Loma Vista. Oh, wrong one. I did look at the market, but this is in Greece, where they lay everything out very pretty. It's not like the markets. Where is this place? I think I just sort of randomly threw photos in here, so they're not in any order. Sorry. Yeah, this is up in the Andes too. This is up in the mountains, and we're always walking, but these guys have got donkeys, they pile all their stuff on the donkeys. This next one is me in Morocco. Everything seems so gigantic to me. It was like, okay, everything is tall and big, huge. What is this one over here? This third picture is, oh yeah, this is part of Machu Picchu. You can see over here is part of Machu Picchu. I had a better picture of that, but I think it didn't get put up. So, all right. What's on the next one? Oh, okay. Oh, let me take a quick break if you want to talk a minute, Shirley. I gotta plug in my computer before it goes dead.
Oh, well, so I was wondering if anybody else had any travel stories that you'd care to share, because I know you're interested in travel, otherwise you wouldn't have signed up for this afternoon. Well, speak up if you like. If not, I just would like to point out that our handout has
Here we go.
a
Can you hear
variety of.
okay? Oh, with a question?
Sure.
Oh, just be careful about the credit cards because they used to all cover this, but we recently, because we always use our American Airlines Platinum MasterCard to charge flights, and unfortunately just got burned because MasterCard doesn't provide that trip/travel insurance as a free add-on, even when you have the deluxe card. Only Visa is still doing that.
Oh.
So I'd say my favorite credit card, I mean, I have a couple because you get airline miles and you can't always call miles for every dollar you spend, no matter where you spend it, whether you spend it here or on a trip or whatever. So if you pay $5,000 for a trip, you definitely got 10,000 miles right there.
Wow.
And it does add up. Yeah. I don't like to have a lot of credit cards because I don't use that many, but I use my Capital One Venture card for almost everything. But if you want to get your free companion trip, which we do, I have an Alaska card for that. I used to travel on my American Airlines, but they only give 1 point for every dollar you spend. And it is, I would say American is the hardest one to book a trip with your miles. Oh, okay, we can't do it on this day. You can't do it on that day. And it costs more if you do it on Wednesday instead of on Tuesday. And it's like, it's just so annoying. With Capital One, they don't care what you buy. You go ahead and buy whatever you want at whatever price you want. And just when you get back, you just tell them and they reimburse you for the amount you spent on the trip, if you have enough points for it. It's much easier. And there are no blackout dates with the Capital One. With American, there's, oh, you can't go at Christmas, you can't go at Thanksgiving. There are all these blackout dates. Capital One has no blackout dates at all. So I've done that. It's the most convenient one to use. Let's see. So that this picture on the left at the top is at a glacier lake up in the top of the Andes. Those are really beautiful lakes up in them. When you get up high enough, there's no people. There's sometimes sheep well, we had alpaca and llamas wandering around, but other than that, this is just sort of typical house in Peru up in the mountains. Oh, this is me in Galapagos again. Oh, here's a Galapagos tortoise too. They're only in one island, so a lot of people think they're Galapagos tortoise all over the Galapagos, but there aren't. They're only on one island. Other than that, you see lots of iguanas, and well, you see land iguanas and you see marine iguanas, but no tortoise. Let's see, is that the last one? Yeah. I think this one is in Morocco, I'm pretty sure. And most beautiful tile mosaics every place you went. This is two little kids up in the Andes. It's funny, they were holding these baby sheep and the little lambs and petting them and everything. But the mother of these two kids was sitting beside her, and they were, whoops, what happened there? They were taking, the mother had the wool that she was spinning that she had taken off of the sheep earlier, or off the mother sheep, and she was spinning it and knitting hats. And this was in the middle of nowhere. She's sitting in the dirt on a little thing, and she's making hats and selling them. So of course I bought one.
Oh, wow.
Okay, this third picture over here is in Greece. But it's kind of interesting because when I went to Greece, it was, I had been to Morocco just the year before I went to Greece. And in Morocco, the first place we went, the second place we went was all these Greek ruins that had all these huge columns and everything. And some of them were just out in the fields. There'd be columns standing out in the middle. A lot of it was not protected much, which is kind of, I guess, in some countries they don't do that much with it. But the same things I saw in Greek, I had seen the same kind of columns and mosaics, the same in Morocco. And I had much earlier been to Turkey, where I saw all the same things too. So the Romans really got around.
Yeah.
And we were laughing. We were in Turkey that we're walking on marble roads. The roads were made of marble. They were huge, big, square chunks of marble going. And how many thousands and thousands of years have these lasted? And we can't get a pothole fixed in San Diego that doesn't wash out the next time it rains. Like, interesting. So I don't know if we have any more pictures. Oh, yeah. This one isn't. This one on the left is in Greece. Okay. So here's one of my favorite. And
That's
the one on the right is
beautiful.
also in Greece. But the one in the middle is in Peru. And this is one of the things I went to Peru to see. This is a Puya Romondii, which is the largest plant in the US, in the world, that is truly a plant, not a tree. And the Puya Romondii is a bromeliad, which is what I go on my plant trips to see, bromeliads. But you can see me and the size of this plant. And it only grows in 2 places in the Andes in Peru. There are no other places in the world that have them. So it's really interesting. That's why I like plants. They're all different and interesting. Okay, so I don't have anything else. You have more, Shirley?
Just one last thing I want to point out on the handout. At the end, there's a section for insurance for seniors. The reason why they make such a big deal of that is that a lot of the medical plans don't cover people who may have pre-existing conditions, or they exclude the condition when they do the medical coverage. So just something to be aware of when you're looking at this stuff.
Does anyone online have any plans to travel in the near future that you'd like to share? It's always interesting to hear about that.
I certainly want to thank Suzanne for giving us the heads up about the UC insurance. I certainly looked that up. I don't know about that. So that's why it's great for us to all get together and talk about this stuff, because you find out something new from everybody. And Ken about his credit card, which ones work for what. Really helpful.
I have a question to Nancy or Susan.
Yeah, hi, Barbara.
Hi, Nancy. Seasoned travelers. Do you have a favorite company that you might recommend for overseas travel? I've always gone on my own, and I'm feeling like I'm a little bit hesitant to go on my own these days.
Well, there's some places I wouldn't go on your own, and
Right.
there's some places you can't go on your own. So it's a good thing to. I don't like to go now. I have gone with a large tour thing. When I went to Turkey, I went with Gate One Travel, and it was a large tour, but they divided it in half and went in two different sections. So it was like two smaller. But lately, the tour ones that I've taken, like to Morocco and to Greece, we went with Gate One Travel, but small group. So they separate. There's a thing called the small under Gate One. There's regular, and then there's small group travel. And in the small group, I think the largest a group would ever get would be 15, and go in small group. And it also made for a lot more fun and camaraderie among the people who went, because none of us knew each other, and there were people from all over the US on that last tour I went to. They were from everywhere, and it was actually just interesting to meet new people and make new friends.
Okay. That's what I was looking for, smaller groups. I
Yeah.
don't like to be on a bus with 40 people and
Right.
on and off all day long.
Well, I thought the Gate One was very good in that he also they will, you can go through them, and they can help you make your reservations, or you can make your own, whichever you want to do, getting there at the meeting point. Like I guess for the next meeting point, we have to meet at JFK. So I think, but then when you get to your destination, they pick you up at the airport. They have somebody there to pick you up no matter what time your flight comes in. They will be there to pick you up, take you to your hotel. And at the
Good.
end, that when you leave, they also take you to the airport, make sure everybody's got their luggage, everything works okay. So I thought they were very helpful. And also, like in Morocco, I mean, that's not a place I would have known what was going on if I didn't have a guide.
Right.
And he was absolutely wonderful, because he took us down through the old part of the old city and stuff. And you couldn't have made a huge group go through there. It had to be small. And I found out it was like a history lesson at the same time as he's telling things and showing you where things are, where they came from, and how many hundreds of years they were this way. I mean, I think it's depending on where you are. Now, I mean, I traveled around Europe myself, and I traveled around Australia and New Zealand by myself. But I did things when I did do it by myself. It was a place where I definitely spoke the language fluently, and when I go someplace myself, like when I was in New Zealand, I just hopped on a regular local bus that was going to go all the way down the island to Rotorua, and I sat down, and some older lady was sitting there who was going to see her son, and so she gave me a travelogue all the way down the road the entire time for several hours. It was like, okay, and she was so happy to talk about everything and explain what everything was and where everything was. So it was, I mean, I think if you're kind of leave yourself open to talking to the locals, you find out a lot.
Yeah, no,
Has
in Europe.
I'm sorry, has anybody been on any of the UC trips, guided trips?
I have not. I always look at all of them, and I watch the things they show, but they turn out to be quite a bit more expensive than some of the other ones I've gone on through Gate One, are much less expensive, and a small group. I don't
Okay.
want to go with a large group.
Okay, thank you.
So there's a company called Overseas Adventure Travel, that there's two divisions, Grand Circle
Yeah,
and
OATs. Yeah, they're good too.
OAT is
Yeah.
a small, less than 15. It's not pricey, but we've done several, and we've been very pleased, very well organized. And you can also buy the airfare through them at the beginning, and usually they get a better deal on it.
Yeah.
Yes, I'm aware of them. Thank you.
Yeah, a couple of my friends have gone with OAT, and they really liked it too. So, and they said the same thing you just said. They're nice small groups, and work better. But so I recommend OAT or Gate One. I think they all refer to each other though, because I know once you want to go someplace and they're not doing a trip, they'll refer you to Grand Circle or something else who is doing a trip there. So I think they kind of help each other out a little bit. I don't think it's cutthroat.
Thank you.